All systems go. Then. Hello, willkommen, bienvenue. It's time for another Amish Inquisition, episode 352 on Sunday, the 3rd of November, 2024. I'm Phil.
And I'm Matt.
Ben's not here this week.
Well, it might be later.
Oh, he might be in for part 2. We'll see. We'll stand by. He's on his way back from a diplomatic mission to Alderaan, I believe.
He has. Hopefully he's not been blown up.
Those asteroid fields are tricky to navigate, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes. There's only one chance in 34 million something, I think.
I think so.
3PO said. Anyway, before we get rambling on, we're very happy tonight to be joined once again by Nigel Watson. How you doing, Nigel?
All good, Phil. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
We were just talking a lot about diet and stuff, and we could have chatted all night about ketones and real meat and those knobheads at Davos. But that's not what we've brought you here for tonight, Nigel, no. Is it? Because I came on your channel about 4 or 5 weeks ago, something.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
I remember towards the end of the conversation, we were saying it would be great to have a chat about religion and Christianity, spirituality, and all those sorts of things. So why not seize this opportunity, eh?
Yeah, definitely. I've prepared quite a bit of stuff, Phil. So I don't know whether you want me to just like plow through it as fast as possible, and then you can ask me questions at the end, or do you want to like ask questions as I go?
You're an ex-teacher, aren't you, Nigel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have to put my hand up? And
no.
Please, sir.
All right. Ask questions as we go. Right. So
I'm going to fire away.
Right. Okay. So basically, what I'm going to start off talking about is natural law, because I think. We're facing a lot of problems, and you can only really solve a problem once you've actually diagnosed what the problem is. And I think this is where we are. Like, for example, I'm a big fan of I watch Rise Above, and I like the Sheep Farm Boys and stuff. So I'm fans of theirs, but often when I'm watching their stuff, I don't think that they're talking really about the things that need to be talked about, because they're not really diagnosing what the problem is. Okay. And I think we don't understand natural law. I believe that there's massive links between natural law and true Christianity, as opposed to the fake stuff that Justin Welby pushes, or the Radio 4 and whatever. So basically, what I would say natural law is it's a God given set of universal truths, right? So we could talk about the law of cause and effect, like actions have consequences. So it's my firm belief that in this life we don't get away with anything, not in the long term anyway. We tend to also attract people who are similar to us. So if you're a good person, you'll tend to attract the company of other good people. On the other hand, if you're an arsehole and you behave terribly towards other people, you're going to tend to attract people who are like that as well. So you know how people sort of say, Mark Devlin does it. He kind of assumes that Bill Gates has got a fantastic life and David Cameron. I don't believe that. When I worked at this boarding school, I came across a load of rich, like super rich, helicopter rich like parents, they didn't seem happy. Because I think many of those people had kind of got money, but they hadn't got it in a way that was like particularly ethical.
Oh, right, okay.
Karma, that's another one. You reap what you sow. So I did a video about, Clarkson was during the pantomime period, he was like mocking people who weren't getting the Maxine. And as it turns out now, Clarkson had some like major heart problems. He had to have a heart operation, some stents put in.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's been on Twitter, but every single day there's more and more of these examples of, sadly, many of these people who were mocking people who were a bit reluctant about Maxine, and people that were banging on about bodily sovereignty and stuff. These people now who were mocking the likes of us are dropping dead, and it's dangerous, to wish ill will on other people. You can get these karmic comebacks. So I personally, I think that's a part of this kind of system. Karma, it does exist. And then the final one is like the idea of the golden rule, which is basically what Jesus was. One of the main things that Jesus talked about was do unto others as you would like to be done to yourself. And I think if everyone was doing that, the world would be an awful lot better as a place. For example, if you think about GPs and their behavior, like they're no longer visiting Maxine, but they're quite happy to inflict Maxine on their patients in return for money. That, what I would say is that we're actually in the situation we're in now because far too many people are not living good lives. They're living in violation of natural law. That's what I've scribbled down here. So you can kind of dig a bit deeper and think, well, people are not respecting each other's human rights. So like one would be like you shouldn't steal from people. So again, you could look at this and think, well, yeah, well, that's obvious, right? But then if you think about the number of people that come onto my channel and they think that the solution to all of this is just change the government. We just need a new set of technocrats in charge. We just need some new politicians and that'll fix it. We just need to swap out Klaus for somebody else. And what I would say is wrong with that is that the fundamental notion of government is in breach, is in violation of natural law. Because taxation is if you actually, I know it's a glib phrase, taxation is theft, but it really is. Like theft is taking from somebody who hasn't given you permission. They've not agreed to it.
Yeah.
And that's what taxation is. They just send you a bill for things that they've decided that you're going to have. And if you don't pay up, they throw you in a cage.
Yeah, because the state has a monopoly on violence.
Yeah, exactly. And people think that this is a moral system. And what I would say is that because there's way too many people embracing things like theft, they just think, oh, I'm going to vote for a political party because they've promised to take somebody's stuff through the tax system and rich people, whoever they are, and give it to me. I'm going to vote for that. Well, if you're basically supporting something that's deeply immoral because you're supporting a system of theft, organized theft. Don't murder. Obviously that would be an important aspect of natural law. But again, you can think about the government, particularly like the British government. Again, this is something that drives me mad. You hear people slagging off. People get confused, right? Between a place on a map, a government, and then maybe a religion or a race of people. So it's like, oh, it's all the Jews' fault. Or people make, even Dom from Sheep Farm, he makes sweeping statements about Jews. Right. And I don't think it's not on. It's not on. Because if you go down that route, then basically what you end up with is wars and It's the state that is responsible for through human history. It's state governments that start wars.
Right. And it's the linchpin to me seems to be authority. So for some reason, we as individuals abrogate our own personal responsibility and somehow have handed over our authority to this national body who steals from us and invades other countries with the money.
Exactly. And picking up on this, like say for Dom, I like him, got no problem with him at all. He produces some great content. But, if you think about what our government has done, and I'm talking here about the British government because I'm still a British citizen, just about, how many people did our government kill in Iraq?
Million?
Yeah. I thought maybe 1.5, maybe Libya.
Who's counting? We don't bother count that sort of thing, do we, Nigel?
No. Well, so
what was it Stalin said? One death's a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic.
But exactly. But then you'll have these same people. They'll say, "Oh well, the Jews, they're murdering Palestinians," and what they end up doing is like they blame individual people who are living on a dot in the map called Israel for they blame those people for the actions of the Israeli government. So how would we like it if, in fact, I don't know if I've ever said this to you. I was in Helsinki probably about 20 years ago, and I was on a train. I think it was like a urban train or whatever, and I was reading a book, and the book was English, and these two black geezers were sat opposite me, and they were Kenyans. And they wanted to hoof me in when they asked me like where I'm from, and I said I'm from England, and they wanted to hoof me in because they said, well, you're English. What you did, what the English did in Kenya during the Mau revolution. Do you know anything about that?
No, not really. No.
It's like bad shit. It's if you want to Google it later for the people who are watching this, it's MAU revolution. So he went in and just murdered and tortured loads of Kenyans. Now I was like trying to say to them, like, really, I don't support the actions of the British government. What the British government did in Kenya, what they've done in Iraq, what they've done in Afghanistan, what they've done in Libya. Don't blame me. Yeah, but the whole system of government, it's those. I don't really want to swear. It's those entities that are responsible. But we should withdraw our support for that entity called government. And certainly what we shouldn't do is practice double standards and blame ordinary Israelis for the actions of the government. Because if you're going to go down that route, then we've all got a lot. We need to start pointing the finger at ourselves because we're not in a good position to speak about anything being born in Britain and what our government has done. Never mind what the current government in Israel are doing in Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
That's nothing special. We've done plenty worse than that. But I'm not going to blame ordinary Israelis, much as I said to these Kenyan guys, you shouldn't be blaming me for the actions of these complete psychopaths. But I think that's another sorry, Phil, that's another important thing that we've got to do is like withdraw from this kind of not participate in this fake democracy system because you're lending when you cast a vote or even spoil your ballot paper, you're tacitly supporting it, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you can say that, therefore, kind of indirectly, you're in breach of natural law.
Yeah, it's the sort of only freedom that we have within the system. We have to pay our taxes or we get locked up, we get caged. But the only sort of freedom we do have to, other than, I suppose, protesting, is to not take part in the merry-go-round that happens every 4 or 5 years.
That's it.
But you make a good point because I remember at one point being a kind of spoil your ballot paper kind of guy, but you're tacitly taking part in the system and therefore legitimising it by spoiling your ballot paper. You're saying to the powers that be, I'm here, my vote is up for grabs, you just need to do a better job. Whereas now I'm like, no, you need to get out, leave me alone and leave me to live my own life.
You've still legitimised the concept of government.
Yeah.
which is wrong because, governments steal, governments murder. Obviously the other one is don't physically assault people. Not just murder people, but like using violence against somebody, that's also in breach of natural law. So again, you can think about, like GPs, what they've been doing. They've been in breach of natural law. NHS, like NHS nurses, like the stuff that goes on in that institution. We can talk about Liverpool Care Pathway. We can talk about people. These people must know, not just what went on with the vaccines. They must also know about, they prescribe people statins and then they come back later with all sorts of problems. But they keep on doing it. They keep on inflicting physical harm on other people in return for money. And that's in violation of natural law. And we are where we are because law of cause and effect. That basically far too many people in Britain and in other countries are living in violation of natural law. And that's the big point that I want other channels to pick up on. Because nothing's going to change until we change. We start living better lives. Yeah. We stop supporting indirectly. We stop supporting indirectly murder. We stop stealing. Like, just as a matter of interest, I think over my lifetime, Brits became tea leaves. Like stealing is just normal in Britain. Low-level theft is just normal. And people just, and the other thing I'd say too is that moral standards do vary between countries. Like where I am in Finland, I think things are a lot better here. The quality of life is a lot better here. And again, it's law of cause and effect. So there's hardly any stealing here. Like if I left my a new bottle of shampoo, quite a nice shampoo at the swimming pool, and came back 2 days later, it's there. Just asked for it. Oh, somebody put, in England, I know it's where I was in Guildford anyway, all that stuff, if you leave anything, it just gets nicked. Yeah. Bicycles or whatever. There was a mate of mine who lived in Brixton, and I think he bought 5 bikes, every single one of them nicked. 5th bike, he just gave up. Just not practical. So what I'm saying is that we have to change ourselves. It's too easy to sort of say we need to switch Klaus out, we need to switch David Cameron out, we need to change. And if we change, if enough of us change and stop living violating natural law, then our experience of life will start to improve because actions have consequences. It's the law of cause and effect.
It's going back. Sorry, Nigel. Just to go back to the theft, how you drew the comparison between Finland and the UK.
Yeah.
A couple of things spring to mind. Could one thing be population density? The way we're sort of crammed in the UK, huddled together,
maybe,
or is it something coming down from above? Some sort of messaging.
It's culture.
Are we more materialistic in the UK generally?
It's what I would say, Phil. In a word, it's culture. So culture is the kind of unwritten rules that kind of define a society. So it's what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And obviously, culture can vary enormously from one country to another. But also, culture can change massively over time within a country. And I'm 59. 60 in March, and the Britain that I remember was like nothing. Like I was on holiday in Greece like a couple of weeks ago, and there was quite a lot of Brits there, and the way that they just treat each other, they're so rude to each other, and that never used to be like that. People were very polite and courteous to each other. Again, I see it in Finland here, in that Finns are taught Old English, in the sense that they'll say, thank you, you're welcome. All these like old turns of phrase that well-mannered people who were living in Britain used in the 1970s. And you say to them, like, people don't, it's not like your textbook, the type of Britain that you're going to experience if you go there in 2024, it ain't like what... It's not like the picture that John Major painted of, grannies on bicycles and cricket greens and all of that. It's changed.
One of the things that springs to mind is the old anecdotes we used to hear from like our parents' generation, where people would leave the front doors unlocked. Your kids would go out, during the summer holidays, go out in the morning, come back before it's dark.
Yeah, that's what it's like here. That's what it's like here. So I was at an ice hockey game I did a blog about it, video blog about it. It's like 7 or 8 year old kids there, just unsupervised. High trust society because people aren't arseholes.
High trust, that's a good term
Yeah,
to
but
use.
that trust that trust has to come from reality. Like if you're overly trusting in a society where that trust is misplaced, you're going to quickly become untrusting.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Another thing is, is that you shouldn't steal people's free will by deceiving people. Now, again, I think that's become a big problem in Britain. It's like when I was teaching again, I noticed this culture in the school. It's like win at all costs, do a little bit of dodgy dealing. And it's even in TV, and like the Del Boy type culture. A little bit of dodginess, it being economical with the truth. That's okay. Deceiving people, but that runs contrary to natural law. And if there's too many people doing that stuff, then actions have consequences. If you keep on taking a dump in your lounge, you're going to be living in a shithole. And that's basically how it is. So you can think about deception. Well, the government deceived people. People in the NHS went along with that deception. They were really happy to go along with it and take part in the live action role play. But again, what I'm saying is that it's too easy to blame Jill Bates or Boris Johnson or whatever. The problem basically is that too many people went along with that. Too many people used their free will to make a decision to be in violation with natural law. And that's why we are where we are. And nothing changes until we change and become better people and live better lives. Like, does anyone, Matt, do you think it's right to deceive people so that you get some sort of advantage?
Not necessarily, no. I suppose it could depend on the context of the situation. If somebody was, I don't know, in your eyes being harmful in some kind of way, maybe. But I'm trying to think of a scenario quickly.
Or where you do it to protect someone else.
Maybe, or yourself or your family in some kind of way, I guess. That's what kind of comes to my mind.
But two wrongs don't make a right, do they? That's if everyone ends up like deceiving each other because they've made a subjective call that it's like for the greater social good, then that's not going to lead us into a good place. I would say not trying to deceive people so that you benefit personally from that. I would say that that's an objective truth. There's nothing subjective about it. It's objectively right. Like not stealing other people's stuff is objectively right. There's nothing subjective about it. There's nothing, not physically harming other people is an objective truth. And we are where we are because a critical mass of people have made a deliberate choice. They've used their free will to go against natural law.
Can you, Nigel, would you caveat these things, deceiving people, physical assault, even murder? Could you caveat all them on the basis of self-preservation or preservation of family and property?
Well, I think that self-defense, I think you could do. Yeah, definitely.
Because
if somebody tried to kill you with an axe or something, you might want to try to stop them from doing that. And but I don't think that takes away from my point. Is that
no. I'm just trying to clarify.
You shouldn't initiate acts of violence against other people.
Yes, it's called it's the non-aggression principle.
Yeah,
totally.
And also as well, shouldn't steal other people's free will through coercion, like trying to bribe people or threaten people. So again, you can think about what the NHS did. There was plenty of bribery, plenty of threatening people. No vaccine, no job, no vaccine, no music festival. That again was in breach of natural law. And thousands of people working in the NHS, they were party to that crime. They stole people's free will by involving themselves in that coercion. You could almost say, I don't know if you've got kids, but I don't think it's right to threaten or bribe kids into doing stuff. I don't think you're bringing kids up the right way if you're doing that. I think you're not behaving with integrity.
All right, just from like a child rearing point of view.
Yeah,
your own kids.
Yeah, definitely. And this is what I'm saying is that in our own dealings with absolutely everybody, we need to be better human beings. And as soon as we start to do that, as soon as there's a critical mass of us start to do that, then things will improve. I'm going to come on to Christianity in a minute because I would say I would say that our morality, there's obviously clear links between natural law and Christianity. Not that many people will know this because a lot of the big critics of Christianity have never picked up a Bible, let alone read it. But what else did I want to say? So it's other stuff like not trespassing against people, not snooping on people, which the government has been doing. Like that's not respecting other people's human right to privacy.
Or the whole dobbing your neighbours in during 2020.
Yeah. And I think, look, I think Britain was a better place in 1970 when I was growing up, because back then Britain was really a Christian country, let's say that. And then also back then, more people, I suspect, would agree with the statement that not stealing, not murdering, not assaulting people, not nicking people's stuff, don't stealing people's free will. They would say that these are objective truths. Whereas what's happened, we've had, 2 or 3 generations of people that have been through Marxist programming, aka school, and now they've got all of this subjective. There's no such thing as right and wrong. It all depends on the situation, and that's why we're in a shithole. And nothing's going to improve. Like, you can talk about all their plans, the big clubs' plans, and do loads of podcasts all about it and study their evil mechanisms and all of that. But that ain't going to get you very far, because you need to diagnose the problem, which is us. Too many of us have been living in violation of natural law. We need not just an economic revolution, we need a moral and spiritual revolution. That's what I would say. And then the other thing as well is, I think I mentioned this to you last time, and I made this up myself, which is the big club, they have done a big number on Christianity, in that people think it's like feeding a kid Brussels sprouts and telling them they're eating strawberries. And then you ask them, do you like strawberries? And they associate it with Brussels sprouts and say no. And that's basically what they've done with Christianity. They've corrupted it.
In what way? Can you be more specific about that? I don't follow you.
Well, like the Welby. Like Justin Welby has been feeding people Brussels sprouts and telling them they've been eating strawberries. So when you tell people, what do you think of Christianity? They associate it with Justin Welby.
That was one of the biggest letdowns during the whole pandemic thing, was the way the churches reacted. In fact, you remember we had Jamie Franklin on, Rev Jamie from Irreverend, and he was one of these guys who was really outspoken. He's a Church of England.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a full priest. I think he's like I forget what rank he is.
He was a vicar.
As vicar, yeah, I think he's a vicar. Yeah, it won't be a priest. Priest's Catholic. But he was one of the few who was really outspoken, and they started their own podcast. Sort of. He was telling us about he wasn't allowed to pray in his own church.
Oh, there was something.
There was all sorts of nonsense going on. And so go on.
The other thing as well, Phil, my battery's going to run out and I've probably got about 20 minutes before my battery runs out. Right. Are you still there now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the other thing that I'd say is that I often hear a lot is when people mention Christianity, they go, "Oh, it's a social control mechanism," right? Which I think is complete. If you've actually read the Bible, you'll know that that's nonsense because one of the main aspects of Christianity is it's based on free will, like which kind of dovetails into natural law. We have to respect people's free will and we shouldn't deceive or coerce people and steal people's free will in that way. So, the other thing I was going to talk about, like evidence that Jesus lived amongst us, but I don't think we got time for that. The letter that there's loads and loads of, there's not a doubt in my mind that Jesus lived amongst us 2,000 years ago. It's just like the letter, Pontius Pilate, King Herod. I've actually stood in his palace on top of Masada in the Dead Sea.
Wow, I'd love to go to Masada.
Yeah, it's a good place to go. Good place to go.
Terrifying ending to that story. The Jewish revolt.
Right. Okay.
They basically the men, when the Romans were coming, they threw their wives and children over the cliff.
Wow.
They didn't do that, Bill. They killed themselves. They didn't do. They killed themselves. Yeah. But I think they did it with, from what I hear, it was like they did it with like knives and stuff.
I think they did themselves with the knives after they killed the women and children.
Okay.
But whatever.
Okay. The documents, Roman and Jewish historians, Shrouded Turin, the behavior of the early church founders. These were people who basically were executed in pretty horrible ways, and they could have avoided that. But, their faith was so deep because they'd actually experienced living with Jesus.
Yeah.
Then you've also got, the various religious texts, not just the Bible. So, I've got a mate of mine in Pori who's from Kazakhstan. He's a Muslim. So, Jesus is in the Quran. Amongst Jews, obviously, like they're aware of Jesus. So there's not a shadow of doubt in my mind that Jesus lived amongst us 2,000 years ago. So what did he say? This is kind of like mega important. So was Jesus advocating social control? So I've just written a few things down from Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. Let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So what we're supposed to do is live good lives, right? Another one, Matthew 5, chapter 5, 34 to 37. But I say to you, do not swear an oath. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. For whatever is more than this is from the evil one. So basically, tell the truth. Don't bullshit people, right? Chapter 5, verse 42. Give to the one who begs from you and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. So this is basically natural law, like do unto others as you would like to be.
And charity, one of the 7 virtues.
Exactly, but it should be a free choice rather than this kind of like stealing through taxation and the welfare state. Just some more, right?
Can I ask you one, Nigel? What do you make of the give unto Caesar what is Caesar's?
Right, that's an easy one. That's an easy one. That's an easy one. First of all, what does the state actually rightfully possess? What does the state actually produce? Nothing. So what Jesus is basically, Jesus often talked in parables. He talked in code. He was quite clever with words. So render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Well, nothing. That's what that's about, right?
Love it. Yeah.
Right. So. Then other stuff, right? So chapter 5, verse 13, you are the salt of the world, and if the salt becomes tasteless, how is its saltiness restored? It is now good for nothing but to be thrown away and trodden underfoot. So again, there's people that sort of think, that Jesus, it was all happy clappy. No, it's you've got to live a good life, and there are consequences of you not living a good life. Again, you can dovetail that with natural law. Actions have consequences. Something else here. Jesus, in Matthew 7, 21, Jesus says, not everyone who says, Lord, 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 will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but only who does the will of my Father, right? And then later, before that, chapter 5, verse 17, do not think that I've come to abolish the law. I have not come to abolish but to fulfill them. And when Jesus talks about the law, he's talking about the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, Jesus is saying, don't kill people, don't do adultery, don't steal, don't bear false witness, like try to deceive people by being economical with the truth. Don't be envious, don't covet other people's stuff, have no other gods but I. So again, you can look at that at face value and think, oh, that's like mumbo jumbo, but it's not. Because these days, with their mobile phones, people worship themselves as their own god. Or you have socialists who worship the government as if it was a god, or worship celebrities as if it was a god. They were gods.
That one before is a good one, just to nip back to quick. The Lord, Lord, Lord one. That sounded like it was hinting at it's not enough just to profess your faith. It's about doing good works.
You've got exactly. And this is where I think, I do have some sympathy. You've got to read this book. There's way too many people in the. I'll name them, like Dom from the Sheep Farm, all the Rise Above people. They love to kind of like belittle the Bible, but it's obvious that they've never even picked the thing up,
right.
And that's just. So look, the one thing that I would agree with is that if you look at the books that follow the four Gospels, most of them are written by Paul. So Paul says in Romans 10, chapter 13, all who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Now, I think that that's in direct contradiction with what Jesus was saying.
Agreed.
Not everyone who says, Lord, 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 will enter into the kingdom of heaven. Furthermore, it's only those who do the will of my Father, which is basically the Ten Commandments, which is basically natural law. So can you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, there's been a
change. We're in this shithole at the moment because far too many of us have lived lives that are in violation of natural law. Whether you want to call it, I like to go down that route, because if you mention the Bible, then like the shutters come down with many people. They won't listen. So if you get in through natural law, you've got half a chance of waking them up a little bit, or maybe at least getting them to think. And what I'm trying to do with this presentation there is to kind of, by reading a few bits out of the Bible, is to get people to think, if maybe I should read this thing for myself and make my mind up about it after I've read it, and thought about it, rather than just being a patsy and just going with this, it's a social control mechanism. Like treating other people like you would like to be treated yourself. Does that sound like a social control mechanism?
You're talking
or does
about.
That sound like an objective, God-given truth?
To be fair, I think you're talking about two different things. So this is what I'm getting from what we've talked about so far. You've been actually quoting Jesus. You're not interested in the Pauline doctrine or the church fathers and their analysis. You're going right back to the basics.
I'm talking. If you think about the word Christianity, what does that imply? It implies somebody who follows the teachings of Jesus Christ, which is what I've just been doing.
Yeah, not someone else's interpretation of the teachings of Jesus Christ. Whereas I think the guys you mentioned, Dom and Rise Above, I think they're talking more broadly about religion as being a social control mechanism.
Yeah, but
once these doctrines get in the hands of men and organizations and hierarchies,
they don't know what Jesus said. They don't know what Jesus said.
No, but I think you're talking about two different things. But
it's not two different things, because the words of Jesus Christ are recorded in this document called the Bible, in the four Gospels.
Yeah, but I think you can separate the philosophy or the teachings of Jesus Christ from a religion. A religion is an organization. It has buildings and churches and employees.
I get where you're coming from there.
That's that's the point I'm trying to make.
So what you're saying, Phil, is that that's churchianity.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right, so I agree with that. Jesus himself he got killed by the religious leaders of his day. So, Jesus bangs on and on about that the church was corrupted in his day.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
eventually
yeah,
it took over the
agree.
road.
I agree with that. But what I'm urging people, my battery is not
Sorry.
long for this world, but basically, what the point I'm trying to get at here is we need to change ourselves. We need to start thinking about natural law and our own lives. And my own personal thinking, I wrote down a few conclusions. So first off, actions have consequences. Too many people have been living in violation of natural law. We need a moral revolution, right? Number two, Christianity's been corrupted. What we do matters, which basically is what Jesus basically, I think he came down here and he was an exemplar of how we're supposed to behave. Obviously, we're flawed human beings, but I think what we're supposed to do during our lifetimes is learn and not repeatedly sin and then ask for forgiveness. What we're at, because that won't work.
Yeah.
What we're supposed to do is to change our lives and to learn. When we make a mistake, learn from it, make sure we repent and don't do it again. And if everybody did that and started, whether you want to call it, lived more closely with the words of Jesus or lived more closely with the Ten Commandments or the principles of natural law, then this place that we're living in now will be a lot nicer. And that's what I would say. And the classic one, I suppose, is the golden rule. That's what Jesus, he boiled it down to that. Look, we can cut to the chase. Do unto others as you would like to be done to yourself. And that's what we need to be hammering. So all of this stuff, studying like what the big club are doing, I've got to the point now where I'm not really interested in studying the antics of like evil people, because it's the wrong solution. That's not the solution. You've misdiagnosed the problem. The problem is us. There's been way too many low-level enablers, like the people who worked in the NHS, people who worked in the police, people who worked in schools, people who just took the easy furlough money, people that caved, got Maxine up to go on holiday. That's the problem. It's the low-level enablers. And that's because too many of us were living in violation of natural law.
Right. Yeah.
That's my point. And I'm done with kind of like, light entertainment, like light studying evil as a form of light entertainment. Kind of like we've had 4 years of it now.
It gets you down as well. It's like I went through a right dark patch during the pandemic, just going through that shit every week. The latest bullshit that Bill Gates or the WHO was coming out with, it was like, fuck, it was dragging me down. And the only solution was to try and start making light of it more, trying to laugh at them.
You can laugh at it. I think it's good. I think it's good to laugh at it. Yeah. But, it's what we've got to do our own work. And our own work is, as we're about to draw our last breath, is to be able to look back on our life and think, well, we became a better person. We were challenged by things. And then, I think there's a lot of, you can come up with these funny words, synchronicities and stuff. But about a month ago, 2 months ago, there was a couple of occasions where I think I was being tested by the big man upstairs, and it was about money and my own honesty. And it was two. The first one was that I got more change back from a transaction than I needed, right? And I was a bit confused at the time, but I went back the next day, gave her the money and then another one was like, I was in the supermarket, some like really, really attractive woman basically dropped a €50 note in front of me. And it was like, okay, went and picked it up, gave it back to Antexy.
Yeah.
Gave it to her. And that was, I thought, right, I'm glad, I'm really pleased that I've passed that. I'm being tested there. I'm being tested. My integrity was being tested.
No, you're thinking I'm on camera here. They've got security cameras.
No, I'm not. I tell you what, Phil. I'm not worried about that. See, this is the problem: is that people they're not God fearing anymore. It's like, look at me, I'm on Instagram. I'm my own God. I've got no one. This is just a holographic simulation. Blah blah blah. There's no God. There's no comebacks. I'm just some cells, and when I die, and I might get It's no wonder people are behaving like arseholes.
Yeah. That's a great point. Actually, there's no judge at the end of it all. People seem
That's what people think.
Yeah,
That's what people think, but they're dead wrong. I don't think you, from what I've got my eyes open and my ears open. What I said at the start, I don't think anybody gets away with anything, not in the long term.
How are you for time,
So,
Nigel?
I'm just gonna be cutting off now. I've got maybe about another couple of minutes. But there was that the Anton LaVey, or there was some of a Church of Satan geezer, or it might have been, I can't remember, one of these guys. And the story is that he was like massively didn't believe in God. Like, so what? Blah blah. I can do whatever I want to do. Mini me Satanist. And then as he was dying, the bloke shat himself. Just like I've seen that. I'm not going to say who it was, but I was actually in a room when somebody died, and they were, not lived the best of life, and like they're shitting themselves about dying, shitting themselves. And that's what I would say to people: is you got to make peace with God when you die. Like I think it was Hitchens? I think there was one of
Chris
who was an
Hitchens.
atheist.
Yeah,
he shat himself. Did a last minute conversion or whatever. But I would say much better to get right with God, try to live a good life. We're all imperfect, but what we're supposed to do is try to become slightly less imperfect as we live our lives. And we're all tested. That's what we're here for. This is what this is, I think. It's a massive test station.
Yeah. It's
We're
funny.
being tested.
I just finished that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross book, and it's all about how to die well, essentially. And it means that you have to live well to die well, essentially. She's had more experience with death than pretty much anyone on the planet, and talking to dying people. And one of the big takeaways is you've got to live well if you want to die well. And by following natural law, I think that's a grade A method of achieving that.
Yeah, or just what's wrong with the Ten Commandments? Even I'm going to talk about Noahide laws. There's nothing. If you actually look at those, people slag that off, but then you actually look at it. I'm going to get cut off in a minute.
It's all right.
Established laws: don't curse God, don't have any idols, don't do sexually bad stuff, don't take part in bloodshed, don't rob or steal, and don't eat flesh from a living animal. Was anything in there that's too bad? Nothing. But most people are ignorant. They'll go, oh, Noahide laws, oh, Jews, bad people. But they don't even know what it is, because they can't be asked to go and look at it and do their reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but this is Anyway, Phil, it's going to cut off in a sec, mate.
Yeah.
So
Before we get rudely interrupted, we should say goodbye properly, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should. We should.
It's been good to catch up again, Nigel.
Yes.
Appreciate your time again, meeting up.
Yeah. No, well, thanks for having me on. And it was a bit of I managed to get through what I wanted to say. I had some important things, I think. So
good. Yeah, it's interesting, and hope people are taking it in and will act on what you've said, or research more, or even better, read the New Testament,
read the Bible.
Yeah, or just understand. Read something about natural law, or just think about it.
Yeah, cool. Right.
All right, guys.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All
Take
the best.
care,
God bless.
See you soon.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
It's all right.
Bye.
All right. Right, we'll be back in for part 2 in 5-10 minutes.
20.
20.
That's what it normally is.
It won't be 20.
5-10 minutes.
Oh yeah. All right. Okay. Link to Nigel's channel in the show notes if you want to follow up on his material. We'll be back. Sexually bad stuff is a bit ambiguous.
Well, yeah.
Apparently.
Well, it would be the bad stuff, I would imagine.
Right. Back shortly. Ta-ra!
Bye.